Hi kids, Pastor Josh here with the continuing adventures of Paul. Now if you remember correctly, last time we talked, Paul and all of his fellow shipmates were shipwrecked. But God had made sure that not a single person on that boat died. Now, as it turns out, the place they were shipwrecked was inhabited. They had landed on the island of Malta, which was actually part of the Roman Empire. Now, when they were shipwrecked, a group of the islanders came to see them, and they were very friendly. They even got together and built up a big bonfire for everybody on the ship to help them dry off. Now, Paul's not the type of guy just to sit around and do nothing. So, as these guys were putting the fire together, he went off and gathered up more firewood to add to the blaze. When he gets back, he throws his wood on the fire, and out of that bundle of wood that he throws in the fire jumps a snake. A viper, if you want to be specific. A very poisonous type of snake. And it bites him right on the hand. Now, the islanders, they see this happen to Paul, and they think to themselves, surely this has got to be some sort of bad guy. I mean, he survives a shipwreck only to be bitten by a snake? This has got to be some sort of divine punishment. They clearly did not know Paul very well. What does Paul do? He just flicks his hand, and the snake lets go and ends up burning up in the fire. And Paul just sits down next to the fire like everybody else. And everyone just kind of waits and ready to see whatever happens. And after a while, they realize, hey, he's not dying. When the islanders realize that the snake venom has had no effect on Paul, boy, do they ever change their tune. They actually go from thinking that Paul is some sort of very evil man to thinking he must be some sort of god. Of course, Paul sets them straight about that. He's not about to allow anyone to call him a god, especially when he serves the one true God. But that just shows you how these people were able to jump from one opinion to the next. Now the next day, Paul and all the other shipwreck survivors are introduced to the governor of the island. And they find out that the governor's father is very sick. So Paul goes to him, prays over him, and God heals the governor's father. When everybody hears this, people from all over the island come to see Paul so that they too can be healed. And Paul heals each and every one of them in God's name. Now that's the end of Paul's adventures in Malta, but if you want to find out what happens next, we'll continue with the story on Wednesday. But we learned two very important lessons from our story today. First, from Paul, we learn that even when things are looking their worst, God can still use us. I mean, Paul was just in a shipwreck, and yet God still offers him an opportunity to teach people about Jesus, which he does when he does all these healings. Now, the other important lesson we learn is from the islanders, and quite simply, that is, don't judge until you have all the facts. When the snake first bit Paul, they automatically assumed this was some sort of divine punishment for something very bad he did, only to find out that the venom had no effect on him, and then they jumped to assuming he was some sort of god. That just goes to show you what happens when you make assumptions when you don't have all the facts. If they had asked the people around Paul what he was like after he'd been bitten, they would have known that this probably wasn't some sort of punishment from God. But we are guilty of the same thing. We learn one bad thing about a person or one good thing about them, and we automatically make judgments about what kind of person they're like. Never make a judgment about someone, good or bad, until you have all the facts.